there's a lot going on that's some positive, some negative. I mean, look, obviously it's great that Trump won because he's so much more crypto friendly. And yet, there's some things about what happened soon after he won or right before he won, or right before he was, I'm sorry, before he was inaugurated, that, launching his own meme coins, Trump coin and Melania coin. I was very disappointed to see that. I didn't think that fit with the spirit of Bitcoin. I mean, as you know, I'm a maximalist. I think most of the crypto projects are worthless or promotes. The SOB 21 thing is really great because now the bank can obviously custody and lend against and deal in Bitcoin. I found it pretty funny that Jamie Dimon was on Leslie Stahl a couple of weeks ago in 60 Minutes and took his obligatory swipes at Bitcoin and how it was used by criminals and so on and so forth. And of course, never mentioning that he was Epstein's banker. But and then 2 or 3 days after the SOB 21 ruling, where the banks are now able to custody it. I mean, there was an advertisement at JP Morgan saying, we will now be, providing Bitcoin custody and Bitcoin custody services. I mean, and so, watch what they say, watch what they do, not what they say. I mean, it's like Larry Fink. I mean, once you realize Bitcoin's inevitable, then you start figuring out, okay, well, given that, I probably ought to figure out how to best make money on it. And so I think, to JP Morgan's credit, they're smart and they realize there will be a business there. And so they're thinking, all right, we're announcing we're in that business. Even though Jamie may not like it, their business for the shareholders is to make money. So, but to me, SOB 21 was a very, very big deal. I mean, it allows the banks to custody the coins. It will allow loans against the coins. I mean, it drags the coins into the normie TradFi financial system where they really hadn't been up until this time. And that's really important.
Do you think that will really limit the sell pressure just because people now saying, hey, I'm holding this and I'm going to lend against it now. I'm not going to sell it.
I mean, for those of us who have coins that we bought a lot lower prices, I mean, instead of selling a coin, you might just say, well, I'll borrow against it. I mean, certainly it could. I mean, certainly it will. Yeah, I think it could and it will. Historically, the coin lending services have been relatively expensive. I've looked at it and, I think they're in the kind of 11 to 15% range.
Yeah.
Range, which
that's what I see.
Isn't that particularly attractive to me? But I mean, if somebody were to come to me and say, well, we'll lend you at the Fed funds rate of 4.5% or something, okay, that's a little different. Maybe I would take a loan out against some of my coins, but we'll just have to see how it develops. But I think that we can now assume that Wall Street and the major financial institutions are now in the game. Just like other nation states are now in the game. We now know that Saudi Arabia and Oman and UAE are all accumulating coins. We heard that through Paul Manafort, Matthew Pines at the Bitcoin Policy Institute, basically passed that information along to me at a party. And so I think there's just a lot of stuff going on. I mean, Saylor calls it, we're now kind of in that golden age, gold rush part of Bitcoin development. And I really think we are. I mean, I think the ETF was huge, absolutely huge. And SOB 21 was another piece of it. And it's just, and now, and the BlackRock flipping, that was huge too. I mean, Larry Fink hated it, looked at it, analyzed it, said, you know what, I either got to get on board this or I'm going to get crushed. And so now he figured out how to make money on it launched an ETF, and it's the largest ETF, best performing ETF ever in terms of growth and size. So there's just a lot of stuff lining up, Brandon, that leads me to believe that, we're going to, it's very possible we're going to break the power law model on the upside here in this cycle. I mean, I think this cycle hits 200 very easily. I think, that's kind of a done deal. And then, it could, with some of these other things kicking in, it could go a lot farther. We just don't know. I mean, Samson thinks it goes to 1 million. I don't know. It's possible. I mean, Dr. Jeff thinks it goes to 500,000, 700,000. I mean, anything's possible. As we all know with this asset, it trades like a wild animal now. It could also go to those numbers and then have a decent sized correction too, which it's also done in the past. So keep that in mind. I'm not sure I want to be buying it at 750. I think we're in a situation where a lot of things are lined up in a favorable manner for Bitcoin. I mean, related to all this, and this is talked about in the book, is just, the government financial situation is just becoming extremely dire. I mean, we're up against the debt ceiling. The reverse repo fund has been run down. I mean, Biden and Yellen left, Trump with a can of shit. I mean, they really, and so and Trump has already called for lower interest rates. I know the Fed's going to push back on that, but when push comes to shove, will they be able to? If they don't push, if they don't cut rates, I think there's a decent chance we'll have some kind of a nasty event that will then force them to cut rates. And the bottom line is, you and I have discussed so many times, is that the system is structured to require inflation, and if they do not get inflation, the system's going to die. so they're going to get inflation, and how does one protect oneself against inflation? Well, you own things they can't inflate. And the two choices are Bitcoin and gold, and Bitcoin's superior to gold, but gold's not a terrible choice. It's just a less good choice.
What do you want to see with Bitcoin in the sense of, with the Trump administration? Is it removal of capital gains? Is it a de minimis, under a certain amount of transaction where it's not taxed? Like what is your hope?
Yeah, those are great questions. Well, I think they should open up with saying every Bitcoin transaction under $1,000 isn't taxed. I mean, that's a no-brainer, because as a practical matter, they're not getting taxed now anyway. All of us have taken sats and used them to pay for things, and we may have a lower basis in those sats, but we did it through Lightning, and they can't track that. So they might as well just memorialize the fact that small Bitcoin transactions shouldn't be taxed. Hopefully, they'll then get to the point where all Bitcoin transactions shouldn't be taxed, and Bitcoin itself shouldn't be taxed because it's becoming a form of money. But I think we're a little further away from that occurring. I want to see them say that they're not selling any of the coins we have, and that Biden didn't sell any of them. I want to hear them definitively say that. I want to hear them say that they intend to start accumulating Bitcoin, and I want to hear them, very loudly support and pressure senators and congressmen to support the Lummis bill. So I think if we get, and I'd prefer to hear them say there will not be any other kind of coin in the strategic reserve. But if they told me they wanted to have a little Ethereum or something, maybe I could live with that. XRP, no, can't have any XRP. XRP is a fraud. So we'll see. I mean, are those things going to happen? I just don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think he's got a lot of fires he's trying to put out. I don't think we can count on any of those happening soon. But, I mean, people like his sons have hinted at the tax thing. And, I don't think it's entirely impossible. It's interesting that they're talking about, and I just saw some writings on this, about how they're talking about these tariffs. And he was talking about how the country ran quite well from 1789 to 1913, before we had income tax, with tariffs being what supported the government. And I thought to myself, wow, that's outside the box thinking, and so, I mean, if we go there, I mean, look, I think the good news is that Trump is a disruptor, and and I think the better news is that Trump 2.0 is better than Trump 1.0, because he's gotten rid of the neocons, and he's got something. I pray that all these guys get approved. I mean, Kennedy, Gabbard, I mean, the people he's got around him.
Change makers.
Yeah, I mean, he's got people who are really, really thoughtful people that I think can really, move the needle on getting the country back going in the right direction. So, and that's what I'm hoping happens.
I want to get your take on Bitcoin being, everyone looks at it as a store of value, and it's a cover from monetary, inflation, et cetera, et cetera. But, the thing I think that, and Jeff Booth obviously talks about this all the time, right? Being a neutral money that captures deflation. How do you, like, it's really the apex predator asset to me, because it captures both deflation and inflation. I would love for you to just unpack that a little bit, and stripping monetary premium from all other assets.
If you want the answer to that question right there, and you like that spicy clip, check it out here. Come on, we'll see you in there. But if you want the full interview in its entirety, all the spicy clips put together, and you're not going to want to miss it, believe me, then check that out here. Come on, we'll see you in there. Do it.